Hello out there in foster care land. Great to be with you. And as you know, being a faith based organization, it is our pleasure always to start with Dear Lord, we just thank you for all these families who are taking your time to care for the children first and foremost, but even giving of themselves today to view this video, God. And we can only pray that it will be enriching for them so that they can continue serving youth and serving children and families and be equipped to meet the needs of those children. Father, I give thanks to you in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. And so today we are going to talk about attachment. And of course, as the word says, it's about connecting and helping a child to feel belonged and build their esteem and helping them to become what God would have them to be. So again, thank you for being here with me today as we talk about the attachment theory. There's a lot of discussion behind it, but those of us who are believers certainly understand that there's nothing new under the sun, and following the principles of God of training a child up the way they should go, being available to them, certainly makes a great difference. So let's delve into this together. So the attachment, when we think of attachment, we know what it is. It's a lifelong connection that is formed very early by an infant to a caregiver, generally. And that's why that's so important, because in a practical sense, or in a real world sense, it would be mom to baby and dad to baby and family. But in this sense, certainly as foster parents, you're looking at how you now can help to impact the child whose attachment essentially has been affected so that they are not with their family of origin. Attachment is the means by which a young child seeks comfort, support, and nurturance, and protection from at least one adult. And the research shows that everyone, all of us, even in our age as we are, needed someone in the beginning to help us be where we are today. So if we move on to the next slide, we see an infant, and it's the means by which an infant or a child gets primary needs met. It is a catalyst for social, emotional, and cognitive development. So if you can imagine with me for just a little bit, think about an infant, think about a baby. Generally what happens, the baby's mode of communication is their crying. That's their expression of need. And so what generally happens when a baby cries and we hear, those of us who are loving and know that what to do to care, we generally respond. We're wondering, does this baby's diaper need to be changed? Are you hungry? What's going on? And so when that baby cries, what you will generally do is respond by either picking that baby up and attempting to relieve it of its needs. So we first have the need, which is the crying, and then we have our response, which is whatever we do. And then what generally happens is that baby then is soothed. And so you got the crying, if you're with me in this circle, then you've got the response of the family, and then you've got the relaxation of the need. All right, and so then the baby is calm until the circle continues again. Well, what's happening there is attachment is being built, security is being built, trust is being built, all because you do one little thing, you respond. And I'd like to think of that's the birth of attachment. And so if you're with me, what we find is that children in foster care many times have not had that experience. So let's look at that same demonstration again. Let's look at it from this respect. The baby is going to do what? You agree it's going to cry. Okay, so we've got a crying baby because there is a need. But what happens is that there is no response. So there's a cry, you get no response because this mom and or family is neglectful, unresponsive, but the baby's crying, continually crying. So the baby is not being soothed. The baby is not being, needs are not being addressed. The baby is continuing and learning that does not, he can't get his needs met. And so that's building in that child a lack of attachment, of security, of trust, because nobody responds. So you've got the cry, no response. You've got the cry, no response. And so if you're like me, your heart harkens for that, but that's true for a lot of the children in foster care. And so that's why you, and we're grateful for you, are so important to the development, as you can see, socially, emotionally, and cognitively for the child that's in your home. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide. And we're going to see a video now, just to actually, and with an experiment that was done between a mother and child. So let's sit back and watch.
This experiment, which I watched through a two-way mirror, is designed to gauge how secure is the crucial relationship between mother and child.
Okay, this bunny is going to go here, and that bunny will be on top.
The value of the test has been established in studies that would watch a child, 1-year-old, and then follow it up and interview them about their relationships to their parents when they were 21 years old. So we're quite confident in the long-term significance of this relationship.
After several minutes play, the mother is signaled to leave the room.
Sweetie, I'll be back in 1 minute, okay? I'll get you back in 1 minute.
Upsetting for you. Shame, I feel. But she'll survive. The key moment in the experiment is the child's reaction to her mother's return.
The important clue is whether the baby's able to become calmed down by the contact with the mother, get back to play. Sometimes it takes a couple of minutes. You see, when the mother was out, she was only interested in the mother, no interest in the toys. Now she has a contact with the mother. She's beginning to show a little interest in the environment, and shortly she'll be right back with the toys where we started.
So you would call this a secure one?
Yes.
She's certainly much happier.
Goes to the door following her. Now, we sent the mother right back in, but the point here is not to distress the baby. We're just trying to challenge it. The baby puts her hands to her face, a sad expression, puts her face down. When she picks her up, she keeps her head down, her arms out, and then she sits in the chair holding the baby. The baby's still sullen. He's low-keyed.
So you would call this insecure attachment?
Yes, insecure. He's avoidant. He's not engaging her, and it's not the reunion's not effective. And it's important to remember here that the thing that upset him was her absence. Her return should be the solution to his problem. Now this is another pattern that we see in babies who are not good at using their mother as a secure base at home. This baby is also insecure. But you'll see, we got a look at his play before the separation. The mother's left. And when she returns, she picks him up. He can't calm down. He's still upset. She offers a toy to amuse him or to comfort him or to distract him, and he slaps it away. She offers another. He slaps it away. He's angry. We call these babies resistant or ambivalent because they both want her back and yet can't use the contact. We think that the difficulty is that in the past, when he sought comfort, she's been inconsistent as to whether she's available and responsive or not.
Okay, so there were a few words that were used that certainly the researcher pointed out here. And what's interesting is that even this is of a birth mother and her child in these experiments. But one of the things I think that struck me was the researchers' comment that there can be long-term impact from the relationship and how a child's attachment is with the birth mom or the birth parent. I also want you to remember as you listen even further on into our discussion today that the importance of consistency of a parent involvement with the child. As I explained a little bit earlier when we were talking about how attachment is impacted and how even the fact that a child who's not nurtured continually, it has a negative impact, but a child whose needs are met consistently, then it's certainly much better and it helps that child to develop trust and to security and the ability to grow and develop as appropriate. There are several different types of attachment that was actually shown there. The secure attachment, and this is what we should see, the secure answers, is that every child gets a little disturbed, you would agree, when their family member leaves. They could be on the floor playing and mom in the room or whatever, but since that mom has walked away or dad has walked away and they get a little nervous and they start crying and sometimes can be inconsolable. So I'll tell you my own story. A few months ago, my family and I, we took a trip as a family, and my son and his wife wanted to go out together while they were away. We were in Tennessee and they wanted to take an evening out. So my husband and I said, well, we'll take care of the children. You guys just go out and enjoy yourself. Well, they did. They went out. And when I think he was probably a little over one, probably about 15, 16 months old, when he sensed that they were gone, he looked toward the door and he started crying and he walked toward that door and he stood there and he cried and he cried and he cried. And I would call him and beckon him to come, but he cried and he cried until he finally was able to be consoled. But I will tell you, certainly being in the business, I immediately, because I've seen this video before, I immediately thought of this video and how this child was demonstrating exactly what was just demonstrated to you on the video. And even though I'm Grammy, I'm not parent. So he was not very comfortable until after a while. I mean, he cried and he cried and he cried. So that's your secure answers. And that's typical behavior. That's healthy. Then you have your anxious resistant. And those are children who have trouble relying even on themselves. They're not even comfortable at all, certainly with the family, but even in themselves, they don't learn to rely on what they can. The anxious avoidant, you will note, doesn't want anything at all to do with the parents. So they try to avoid any contact. And so how we've come to understand all of this as we even consider anxious and avoidant disorganized attachment, where you've got a combination. How we've come to understand this is that because of man's nature to protect themselves, essentially it's their way of developing to not be hurt. So it's a form of protecting themselves in interactions with others. Next slide. We're going to look at another video now as we show more about the attachment styles.
The attachment theory argues that a strong emotional and physical bond to one primary caregiver in our first years of life is critical to our development. If our bonding is strong and we are securely attached, then we feel safe to explore the world. We know that there is always that safe base which we can return to any time. If our bond is weak, we feel insecurely attached. We are afraid to leave or explore a rather scary-looking world because we are not sure if we can return. People who are securely attached are said to have greater trust, can connect to others, and as a result are more successful in life. Insecurely attached people tend to mistrust others, lack social skills, and have problems forming relationships. There is one type of secure attachment, and there are 3 types of insecure attachments: anxious ambivalent, anxious avoidant, and anxious disorganized. In responses to distress, the first 3 react organized, while the last acts disorganized. To understand the theory better, let's look at Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who have 4 children: Luca, Anne, Joe, and Amy. The Smiths are lovely parents who cuddle, make frequent eye contact, speak warmly, and are always there for their kids. But one day, Mr. Smith falls very sick and dies. For Mrs. Smith, life now becomes very difficult. She spends all day working, while at the same time trying to care for her children. An impossible task. At 6 years of age, Luca's brain is for the most part developed, his character strong and his worldview shaped. The new situation does not affect him much. He knows there is still always Mum, his safe haven. He feels securely attached. Later, he turns into a trusting and optimistic young man. His self-image is positive. Anne, who is 3, has problems coping with the new lack of attention. To Anne, her mother now acts unpredictably. She is anxious about their relationship and as a result becomes clingy. To get her mum's attention, she has to raise her emotional state and scream. When her mum finally reacts with a predictable response, she herself acts ambivalent and doesn't show her true feelings. Later in life, others think Anne is unpredictable or moody. Her self-image is less positive. Her attachment style is anxious ambivalent. 2-year-old Joe spends his days with his uncle, who loves him, but thinks that a good education means being strict. If little Joe shows too much emotion or is too loud, his uncle gets angry and sometimes punitive. This scares Joe. He learns that to avoid fear, he has to avoid showing his feelings, also in other situations. As an adult, he continues this strategy and has problems entering relationships. His image of himself is rather negative. His attachment is anxious avoidant. Amy, who is just 1 year old, gets sent to a nursery. The staff there is poorly trained, overworked, and often very stressed. Some are outright abusive. Amy therefore becomes anxious of the very people she seeks security from, a conflict which totally disorganizes her ideas about love and safety. As she is experiencing fear without resolution, she tries to avoid all social situations. As an adult, she thinks of herself as unworthy of love. Her self-image is very negative. Her attachment is anxious, disorganized. Our attachment is formed in the very first years of our lives, a time when we are too young to communicate our anxiety and as a result can experience high levels of stress. Then our adrenal gland, an organ sitting on top of our kidneys, produces the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol. The heart rate increases, the blood pressure goes up, and we become alert. If that happens frequently, it is called toxic stress. Toxic because it impairs the development of a child's brain and weakens the immune system. In embryos or at a very young age, toxic stress can even switch the expressions of genes, which can affect our health many decades later. By simulating a strange situation, we can assess an attachment style already by the age of 1. To do this, we let the child play with their mother for a few minutes inside a room. Then the child is left alone. The key moment is the child's reaction when her mother returns. Securely attached children first usually hug their mother, then can calm down and eventually get back to playing. Insecurely attached children can be ambivalent and avoidant. Some can't stop crying or refuse to continue playing. The long-term effects of our attachment in the early years are well documented. Using the theory, researchers at Minnesota University were able to predict already at age 3 if a child would drop out of high school with 77% accuracy. In another study, undergraduates at Harvard were asked to assess how close they felt to their parents. 35 years later, they were asked about their health. 91% of those who said they had a rather broken relationship with their mother were also diagnosed with health issues, including coronary artery disease, hypertension, and alcoholism. For those that had reported a warm relationship, the figure of poor health diagnosis was just 45%. But there is another reason why the early years deserve special attention. They are the starting place for subsequent behaviors. A kid that feels securely attached at age 2 can make friends at kindergarten. Their worldview gets reinforced with every interaction, and they develop optimism. As a result, they make good relationships at school, then at college, and later at work. Highly insecurely attached children can miss out on this opportunity. Psychologist John Bowlby, a pioneer in attachment theory, allegedly said, "What cannot be communicated to the mother cannot be communicated to the self." In other words, those who feel insecurely attached might not quite understand themselves. To get to know who they are and what they feel, they might have to go way back in time.
Wonderful video, you'd probably agree. It's certainly remindful of us that the importance of our involvement with the children and helping them to feel secure and build trust, because it does have a very long range impact on them. So let's look at some of the traits of secure attachment. And when we review this together, let's think about the children that are currently in your placement or who may have been in your placement. So these children tend to be confident, and the parent is emotionally responsive to their needs. Now, kids coming into care certainly miss a lot of this, but what we do know, which is exciting, is that children are very resilient. So you may, in their times of their placement with you, do see some of this. Also, these children can learn how to trust peers and adult figures. So they're comfortable in your home. If you've got children, certainly they begin to relate to the children and have that ability. They also are stable and secure in their own sense of self and who they are. Probably little notice because, again, our kids have been victims, so you don't sense this as much. But some children are more resilient than others. The children are able to reach out for comfort and assistance in times of distress. That's a very secure and a healthy child. But if we think about the child, again, described early on, whose needs have not been met, they learned how not to ask because they have been disappointed or they've not had someone to respond to their needs. And so when you're giving, many times they may even reject it. A secure child is able to regulate their emotions. It is healthy to have emotions, anger and disappointment and frustration, but how they respond in those behaviors or those attitudes is what's important. Now, let's look at the traits of the insecure attachment. And I hope certainly that you've seen some of the traits in the children of a secure attachment, representing secure attachment, but I'm confident that you probably have seen more of this, the traits that are present in an insecure attachment. Feelings toward the attachment figure is unsure, Well, that's just natural. For one part of it, you're brand new to them, just getting to know them. And again, um, they are confused about their placements. You know, where am I going to be? Am I going to be here a little while? Or am I going to be a couple of days? Am I going to be here a month? And we do know, unfortunately, that many of the children in foster care have had multiple placements. And if I may interject here, this is another reason it's important to reduce the number of placements and move again, because it does have an impact on attachment and the child's security and trust. Um, the child demonstrates clingy behavior, but yet repudiates your interaction. So it's like, well, they want to be with me, but then they don't receive it well. Again, the anxious, avoidant, or resistance is because I don't know. Is this real? Because I've gone through this so many times, and so if it is, I really do want to be, but many times I've tried and no one has been there for me, or they've been there for a little while and I'm getting comfortable, and then for some reason I have to move again, and they don't understand it. So that's another reason why, in preparing for foster care, or even as you go through fostering, really knowing yourself so that you can help a child to become stable. The youth are anxious and demanding in their interactions. Well, again, this is a response that's typical and normal for children who don't know if they can really rely on their caretaker or the family with whom they are placed. Expects others to be frustrated when they reach out for help. As parents with our own children, we tend to be responsive, and they know that if they really need something, if they're crying or if they ask for something, we're going to respond. As we know historically, or from the research, that victims of abuse and neglect, children, their parents' focus is not on them, but on their own needs. So the parents are not able to really see the need of the child for being consumed with their own circumstances. These children look for others to shun them. That's what their parents have done. They're dependent on others to feel a sense of value. How do they feel valued? How do they know that they're worthy? Babies know that because parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles, they just love on them. They rock them. They want to sit there and hold them. They look at them in the eyes. They sing and coo and do all those things that most of the children in foster care have not had someone to do. And so that's why it's important, in an effort to help reestablish security in a child, is to give them that attention, to share with them, and to be in the moment with them, to be present with them. They're looking for reassurance. For those of you who may have seen the previous webinar that I did about a month ago, talking about the impact of placement, one of the things strongly suggested is that being there, being present, and reassuring the child that all is well. And this is important in placement. Let's move on. What does this mean to you? I would love to hear from you what it means to you, but the evidence that we have found is that the child may not have had a secure attachment with the biological caregiver. And I've expressed that. This is what you are seeing when a child comes to your home. You are literally seeing that part of the equation, the fulfillment of baby crying and no response. And so you're seeing the child being avoidant or being resistant and or being clingy, but yet not being welcoming. You're seeing that. Insecure or disorganized attachment leads to behaviors which can be challenging or confusing. You would probably tell me that, today he appeared like things were going really well, but then something happened and you didn't understand it. And certainly it's really related to the relationship that the child may have had in the previous family, and especially in the family of origin. So think about some of the kids that come to your home. Many of them, it's not their first placement. Many of them, it might be their second, third, or fourth placement. And each time they move, that attachment is weakened, so that if you think of putting together a piece of a puzzle or something, when you keep detaching it and trying to reattach, it gets really, really loose. And even though it may still go in there, it's not secure. And so that's what you're most of the times that you're seeing. So it's not unusual for even foster families to say, I really have tried, I'm trying, but I just find it difficult to attach to this child because this child's not welcoming anything I'm trying to give. Well, let me tell you, the secret is to continue giving, to continue loving, continue being available, to continue being sacrificial. I'm sure you're saying, well, it's easier said than done. And I don't dismiss the fact that it is very difficult. It is very, very difficult. And so that's one of the reasons we at Miracle Hill, we pray with you and pray for you. And we encourage you to do the same, because it's one of the most challenging responsibilities that there is. And that is to take care of a child who is in foster care and give that sacrificial love. So I want to encourage you in that. If you can't form a relationship with the youth, of course, we know this is at the point where many times you ask for the child to be moved. And we certainly respect that. We want you to know that if you've tried and you've allowed us to work with you, securing counseling services or therapeutic services or doing whatever we can, even providing respite on occasion, because that's important as well, to securing the placement, then we understand. And one of the things I will say at this point is that the Department of Social Services appreciates and asks that if it got to that point, that you afford a 10-day notice so that the placement can be identified where maybe the child's needs, which might be greater, can be met. But I would ask that you, again, give every opportunity to working with the child. And as we move on. All right, so what do we see? Yeah, and I wish you could talk with me again, but here's some things that we see when needs are not being met, and you'd probably agree with me, or you'd say, yes, that's true. What do we see? So again, remember what I said, kids are learning this as a form of self-protection. Survival is the big word, so they learn to be, I hear so many times that, oh, this kid's manipulative. I mean, he just try to work it. I agree. You're right. They try to work it so that they get what they feel at that moment is going to help them feel secure in whatever it might be. They may work you against the husband against the wife, or in some way to get their way, so that here's the key, so that they can feel good about themselves in whatever they are in. So keep that in mind. Withdrawn. Well, if you've been rejected and you've had no response, and even in infants, it has been shown and it has been presented that infants can also be withdrawn. They don't seem to feel the warmth that is afforded when a family picks them up, because they don't know what it feels like. They have been left to lie in a crib or in a car seat all day long. Many, many years ago when I worked in adoption, we had a situation where a little boy spent the majority of his time sitting in a car seat. And that even impacted the physical shape of his head, so that he had this flat head from having sat in that. That's the only thing they would do. They'd get him up in the morning and sit him in the car seat. Not a good thing. Not a good thing for a relationship. It prevented him from moving about, from exploring. Remember, that's what part of it is, that for attachment, when you are secure with a loved one, and you're willing to go out and explore the world, learn about your environments, which helps to build your knowledge and capacity to engage. Inhibited, like withdrawn, not feeling comfortable about doing anything. In the young age, infants, toddlers, that's one of the greatest period of growth, of learning. And if a child's inhibited, it's really going to stunt their growth, because they're not going to be willing to see what it's like to to play with some Play-Doh or to pick up the crayon and color and do those things that little ones like to do, even though they can't do it well. They're willing to explore. How about being bossy and aggressive? Well, I'm not going to let anybody step on my territory. Again, survival. Again, and that might be with your own children, or even with you, really pushing the envelope in their little behaviors and trying to control the situation. And of course, foul language. They have learned that behavior, and it can be very offensive. I find it challenging myself hearing little people use foul language, but I'm sensitive to the environment from where they came, so that I make it a business to never use foul language, so that they can, if at all possible, be transformed by renewing of their minds from the experience of living or being around me. So when you are the noun parent, you get that opportunity to give what God would have them to have. And that is the loving, nurturing, caring environment without foul language. Lying and stealing, again, survival, behaviors that they may do, wetting and soiling. Sometimes while wetting and soiling may not always be attributed to the emotional attachment, it certainly could be physical. So you would want to make sure you take the child to a medical doctor, have the child checked out and addressed in whatever ways to address that if there is anything physical. But on occasion, many times, wetting and soiling, enuresis and caprices is associated with their attachment and their ability to feel a sense of security and trust with a caretaker. It also is a way of them exerting control. So it's something that when we talk with families about dealing with this circumstance, is trying not to get in a power struggle over wetting and or soiling. And then finally, running away. Scary, but truthful too. Running away. What are they running to, or are they running from? It's a combination of both. Running away from what they, at the time being, perceive is not comfortable for them. What are they running to? There's a fantasy that if I can just get back. But the question is to what? Back. In their little minds, the development, they're believing that where they were many times was great, and they seek it. So you may experience some of that too again, but being able to offer the consistent love, attention, and nurturing to help them begin to feel secure in the placement. Okay? So we talked about the behaviors, and those are the kind of behaviors that certainly can lead to disruptions. Disruption is where a child is asked to be removed from a family because the behaviors and those presented before others have gotten so severe that it can't be managed. And again, like I said, we do understand that. What we do know about disruptions is that it does impact the development of the child. It only contributes to further destruction in that child's development. It hinders the development and the healing process. It jeopardizes the opportunity for them to even have secure attachments with other adults as they grow older. And even if you think back to the video, and it talked about as they grow older, relationship with peers, even trying to get into a relationship with a companion can be destructive. So it really does have a great impact on the individual. Some of you know adults, and if you think back to those adults now and who they are, and you think about, I wonder, did they have some kind of impact in their attachment circumstances, where they can't seem to stay in a relationship, multiple relationship, divorces and all of that, because again, the beginning does impact the end. Okay? So, help. Well, of course, I must say, as I said earlier, it is a difficult experience, especially for children who have significant attachment issues. It's real difficult. Um, and you cannot do it alone or independent. You need the support of your family, of course, but you need definitely to have the support of the staff there to surround you. You definitely want to seek therapy and counseling services for the child, but also for the family as a whole. We do find that successful therapy works really well when everybody is involved. You do want to take the breaks, like I said earlier. You do definitely want to take respites when you can. You do. And so, in an effort to help, one of the things you want to do to help that child is it's critically important for you as the parent to start to really be observant and really watch the behaviors so that you can hopefully help to already be prepared to respond, to counteract what anything that might happen. You want to be able to do that. If you know those triggers, you may be able to adjust your own behavior or response so that child's behavior does not escalate. Also, providing a safe base and haven. So that child can relax, come down, and feel that I'm going to be accepted. So you do want to be able to have that. We all need that because essentially every once in a while we all get emotionally charged. And then how can we relax? How can we calm down? Take a few couple breaths. You take the breath. You help the child take a breath. No need to talk. We're not going to talk now. Giving them an opportunity to just time out so that they don't have to address. You recognize that they're out of control, but give them that opportunity to calm down. As it's said here, it's not a quick and easy process. It's messy for sure. Often following a pattern of one step forward and two backs, definitely. And as I said earlier, support is definitely needed. But we know that success can be attainable if we hang in there and you hang in there with support. So think about what your baby needs from you. What do your kids need? Are we listening? Are they hearing you? Are you validating them? Are you telling them, hey, you're a great kid? It's important to say those things. Staying close and helping them to calm down. Do they need soothing rather than correcting? This, like I said a minute ago. Really, really, really being present with your child. I can't say that enough. Those of you who listen to me talk before, you'll hear me say this often. One of the greatest things you can give your kid is for you to be present with them, really engage with them, so that they begin to sense, wow, I'm really valued. I'm really, they care about me and not just giving me the 3 square meals. Okay? And of course, it's important that let's look for new strategies. What can we do? If you try something over and over and over and over and it's not working, try something else over and over and over and it might work. So instead of timeout, as I've said, sometimes staying close and having a conversation, and also learning how to do the opposite of the voice. Instead of getting really, really loud, Johnny, I told you not to do this anymore. Johnny, come. Let's talk about this. Just really you relaxing yourself, and hopefully they'll mirror what they see. But we tend to mirror behaviors. So if you get upset, then they're gonna get, and if they get upset, sometimes you like, okay, we're gonna see who is in charge here. So you just don't mirror their behaviors. You also, instead of sending the child to a room, doing an activity alongside her. I totally agree with this, but I like to say, let's be a little bit. Let's do it before we get to that. I want to encourage you that first I want to say thank you, but I want to encourage you to really get to know your kid and what do they like to do, and whatever that be, you begin to wear it with them. Homework is done, wear whatever it is. If they like to color, you take some time and color. Homework is done. If they like to be read, to read. Homework is done. If they like to do puzzles, you get in there because there are things that you have to do. and it's required, but you let them see, hey, oh, you're doing a good job in your homework. Oh, wow, I like that. Homework is done. Let's have hot chocolate together every night. If that's what they like, I don't know. I mean, just the things that you would normally do so that you are taking a presumptive approach as opposing to wait until the behavior goes out of control and then you start doing things. You don't have to wait. You can begin to present. And if it gets there, then you can certainly do that too. But there's no need to wait. And then, of course, it's always be reminded, all of us, especially our children, need to have the high five, the pat on the back, the fist bump. We need to be encouraged. We need to celebrate the small victories. And when those are, it's a good thing to, some of you probably have like reward charts and things of that nature. But look for opportunities. I say this often and I really believe it. Look, extremely look. Put on binoculars or something. See good. Because sometimes it's hard to find. But see good in your kids so that you can affirm and you can praise them. Let them, because if they've come to you from a very negative environment, they don't know how to receive. So you got to show them how to receive the praise. You got to show them that you can see that in them. And then you can be reminded that, again, what you are contributing to, you're attributing to their attachment, the security that they'll need as they move out in life, to go to work, to build a relationship with others, to go to school, to be the young man and the young woman that God has created them to be. So I hope, again, that you can appreciate that attachment is so important. I think about even us, how we get attached to the Lord is our continuing in his presence, praying, reading, studying, connecting with others who are in him. Again, similar to what we would do to help our children to attach as well.